for Ebonics languages. So languages, for example, that have a lot of borrowing from the French or the terminology to actually define those languages on their own terms as opposed to their non-African lexical borrowing. So my solution to this is actually so looking at Ebonics as re-lexified African grammar. So Ebonics is a concept coined by African-centered, African anti-American psychologist Nana Robert Williams in 1975 publication. He defined Ebonics as the continuity of Niger-Congo languages in the languages of African people in the Western Hemisphere. So I have a map here just illustrating. Hold on, my presentation wants to faster than me. Illustrating, so I have a map here illustrating the different groups of continental Africans that came across the Atlantic, that were brought across the Atlantic. Just to illustrate what it means. My problem with this definition, it's not so much superly flawed, but the one limitation is that it doesn't include the contact languages or Ebonics in the continent, such as your so-called pidgins or whatever. One definition that I tend to like is that of Obenfo Kimani Nehusi in his essay From Metametric to Ebonics. I'm not going to read the about his definition is that his definition includes it as a continuity of African linguistic traditions broadly, but he also understands that there's simultaneously processes of resistance, accommodation, and adaptation to a new environment. So he gets into the how and why that Ebonics came to be alongside the what. Same categories exist in these languages. One I want to highlight in particular is the Ako concept again, because it's roughly similar across Jamaican, Papiamento, and Balancero is Ako. So in Jamaican you have Ako, in Papiamento you have Tabai, which is the same. Balancero is slightly different and it just says Bae, but it's both to indicate an action that's soon to come into fruition. So kind of like a close trajectory of that. So now I'm going to get into cosmological juxtaposition. So I use the term cosmological juxtaposition to refer to ontological unity, or what's called fundamental interrelation, that's assumed in the morphology of this construction that reflects our cultural perspective. So the juxtaposition part is that words are juxtaposed to express equational relationships. So if I say them ba, right, you just take them and ba, which means, they are very good. But you just need them and ba, you don't need an intervening element between those two. Or in a Langpangwen, you can say you're better. So two ways that we see this is in adjective juxtapositions and prepositional juxtapositions. So I have examples up there. So I'll go over one of these just for time. So for example, with the preposition, we can say in the house or in the house, depending on the language, right? Which is similar to chui or wo ye dong. So the wo and the de function the same, and the mu function similar to ina, sorry. And then in Igbo, so you can see those elements are similar. I have them highlighted in green. So that's one of the ways that it's, same grammar, just different words. There's also noun juxtapositions. Now, what is important about the noun juxtapositions? There's a lot of interesting dynamics. There's something what's called an A-B nominal. When you're naming people, like if you want to say name coffee or name kwajo or kojo, you just say name and then the name. And in Capu Verdeano, that's the Ebonics in Cape Verde, they say El Choma Kofi. Similar to languages like Mende, where you have Tala Kofi. Right? It's not only Mende, but that's just one example. So another juxtaposition that's really interesting, I've struggled to find the right terminology for this, but I've settled on just using a model phrase and what I call the element juxtaposition. So the element is used to express in African language fundamental interrelations, either in an affirmative level, adat mise, or in an interconnection level, anything. Right, I have the examples at the top left. So we see these types, now the word is derived from European languages, but it's rooted in Tree, from the na concept in Tree. So this is in several African languages, this element, which I'm using as a model phrase. So for those who know Medu-Venture, you will know this as ku. For those who speak Tree, you'll know this as na and ni. Those who speak Swahili, you'll know this, or Yoruba, you'll know this as ni, and in Ewe as ni. Ebonics languages. So adapt is basically an affirmative statement. So if we say azuka or obu azuka, right? It's similar to saying se azuka in non-Thai. So now in anything, it's basically used in the middle to establish interconnection. So if I say ada umani, or in some Caribbean language they say ada is a woman, and then in non-Caribbean, ada se, or ada se. Now, so if I conclusion. So what is the importance of all of this? Well, there's three, I always look to Mambo Amazama's discussion of why we must write. And the three reasons she gives is one, to dissolve cultural dislocation or disorientation, to help do that, reinforce positive African self-image and values, and also help standardize our languages. And the ultimate fundamental linguistic and cultural unity of African people. So this is to negate the ethnic hostility that comes often, that some of us unfortunately have seen with the language conversation, and facilitate a Pan-African consciousness, or rather, I should say a Black Power consciousness, now that I'm thinking about it. So the ways I address this in this research is that I'm dissolving cultural dislocation by reaffirming the Africanity of people in the diaspora. Because a lot of times we're, being in the system of white terror domination, we're told